This is Gemara and Eruvin Daf Pei Aleph. All the learning should be as chus for Shem of Yidamir ben Yikira, Menu ben Vigel, Chaim Chanita, Chaim and Sarah, Shlomo Ziv and Rezeto, Zarbas Kenita, Basim Bas Chaisar, Yisachem Sarasi, Yosel, Bemental, Betz Shalation, Bastomi, Bashafik, Shechana, Faldovani, Teriva, Denon ben Chana, Rezol, Shalchaim ben Yehodis, Besok, Archeli Yisrael. Just to mention that the other day there was a Torah time slight issue. Baruch Hashem was fixed, I think, by the time it was morning in America. And I think many people found this year on YouTube when they had that issue. So that is, of course, always the system. But if anyone would like to be added to the email list, we just basically send out an email whenever there's an issue. Like there was an audio issue, we just let everyone know in case the share wasn't there. Here we sent out the good audio. We reminded everyone it's on there anytime. If you'd like to be added to that list, please just feel free to send me an email. Let's pick it up from the Mishnah on Pei Amid Bei, says the Mishnah. Closing in on this parak, Mir Tashem, we will be finishing it tomorrow. Says the Mishnah, B'chol Ma'arvin, you are allowed to create an Eruv Umishtatvim or create a sheet of Mivu'ais, Chotz Min HaMayim Min HaMelech, Devar Rav Eliezer, with everything aside for water and salt. This should sound familiar. We had this concept many blocks before. Rav Yeshua says, Kikar hu Eruv, Afilu Ma'afa Sa. If you have a kikar, you have a full loaf, that's a good Eruv, even if it's a saw's worth of flour. Kikar hu Eruv. Afilu ma'afa sa v'hu prusa ein ma'arvin ba. So if you have a full kikar, then it's good. But if it's a lot of flour, but it's a piece of it, then ein ma'arvin ba, then you're not allowed to use it as an Eruv. Kikar ke'isr v'hu shalim, then ma'arvin ba, then you're allowed to use it as an Eruv. Let's just see the Rashi's over here. Rashi sort of reads the Mishnah for us. Rashi says, Kikar, Shalim, that was the first case, that's a good Eruv. Then the Mishnah continued into Afilu Ma'afa Sela. Says the Rashi, She'afa Sa B'Kikar Echad, it was a quantity of a flour in one Kikar, V'noto Menu Ma'at, V'Shavi Prusa, and then you took a little bit off, now it's like a piece. Therefore you cannot make an Eruv of it. Why? Because it's a piece. So the din there of Yeshua is teaching us that the Eruv has to be a full entity, but can't be a piece of something. Kikar, Katan Kimidas Isser, that was what the Mishnah concluded. And the Mishnah said, Kikar Ki'isser, if it's a very, very small Kikar, but Vehu Shalem, then it's complete, you can make an Eruv. So basically we saw in the Mishnah two different dinim. The Mishnah began with Rav Eliezer that anything can be used as an Eruv aside for water and salt. The Mishnah continued and the Mishnah said that it's better, not that it's better, but if you have an Eruv and it is a full item, a Shalem, you can use it as an Eruv. But if it's a Prusa, a piece, even if it's a larger piece, sometimes you can have a piece of a large loaf, it's very big, and you could have a full kikar, a full loaf, and it's very small, but it has to be a Shalem. Says the Gemara one more time. Moving along to Pei Aleph Amid Aleph. Tanya Chadazimno. We already learned this din one time. B'chol Ma'arvin. With anything, you're allowed to create an Eruv Umishtatvim, or you're allowed to create a sheet of Mivu'ais. Chotz Min HaMayim U'Melach. We already learned the din. So why do we have to say the Mishnah two different times? Amar Rabba Lafukim Rav Yeshua. It's coming to teach me not like Rav Yeshua. Meaning, it says the Gemara, it's a machlokes in the Mishnah. The first opinion in the Mishnah is arguing. The Tanna Kama is saying that it could only be Chutz Min HaMayim Melach to teach you not like Rav Yeshua. That what? The Amar Kikar in Midachrin Eloi Kamashlam B'chol. Rav Yeshua said it has to be a Kikar, a full loaf. So the Gemara is explaining that when the Tanna Kama said B'chol, with anything you can create an Eruv, that's come to teach me Kamashlam B'chol that could even be not like Rav Yeshua. Says the Gemara, Esvei, Abaye is bothered. You can make your Eruv, you can make your shituf out of anything. They did not say they use bread. Another brace that we've had, unless it is a shoot of Eruv Chatziris. Man Shamis Lei the Amar Pas in Midachrini Loi. Who is one that says it has to be specifically bread? Rav Yeshua. That's the opinion of Rav Yeshua. Vikotani asks Abaye. Rav Yeshua says bread. And Vikotani, Bakol. So you just told me that when our Mishnah says Bakol, with everything, it comes to preclude and exclude. From the opinion of Rav Yeshua, ask Abaye, how could you say that? We have a brayso clearly implying not that way. It's coming to exclude from a different part of Rav Yeshua. The Havamina of the Gemara was it was coming to exclude from the fact that Rav Yeshua required bread. Now the Gemara is saying no. It's coming to exclude from the fact that Rav Yeshua said it has to be a shali and not a prusa, please. Kamashlan b'chol. So that Tanakama holds Ba'akol can even be a piece. So now we learned that there's a machlekes going on in our Mishnah. The first opinion in the Mishnah that said you can make an eruv out of everything except for bread and salt and water. I'm sorry. The Gemara now is explaining holds you could also make an eruv out of a prusa, a piece of a bread. Rav Yeshua holds no. The eruv has to be a shalim. So Gemara says, where do we know this different from? What's the reason? Prusa my temelai. Why does a prusa? Why does a piece of bread not work as an eruv according to Rav Yeshua? Amar Rav Yisi ben Shaul, Amar Rebbe Misham Eva. You know why? Because it's cause fights. Eva, usually a concept we have with regard to Goyim. That's the reason. Many different reasons. That's the concept that we don't want the Goyim to hate us, so we allow different items, different concepts, different practices. Maybe Atzalah calls for a guy, Atzalah will pick them up because Eva, we don't want them to hate us. But here we're extending it to Jews. Here we're saying if guy A in the Eruv puts in a loaf of bread and guy B just gives a piece of bread, they're going to come not to like each other. And again, the whole point of the Eruv is to come together to create a oneness. It's going to cause fights. Therefore, says Rav Yeshua, it has to be a full loaf of bread. So what happened? You just told me the reason is fights. What if they all give a piece of bread? No, it's still no good. Because maybe it's going to revert back. You never know. Maybe a different time. It's going to come that one will have a full bread, one will have a piece. So it doesn't work. So that's the din according to Yeshua. You always need to have a full loaf. Just will mention this. Hasemes asks, I don't understand. If you have a choice, you don't want Eva, you don't want fighting. Fine. So what should you do? Say that it works. Everyone can bring a piece of bread, and you don't need a full bread. Why are we machmir? And we know the rule generally is that we go with the more makel shita by Eruvin, which also is another question why we paskin like Rav Yeshua. They need to have a shalim, a full loaf of bread. If we usually go by the makel shita, okay, different answers. But explains this Vasem is a beautiful answer. You know why? Because it can't be a situation that a guy comes with a full loaf of bread and he says, "I want to be part of it." So no good. You can't be part of the Eruv. We only take a prusa. We only take a piece. That can't be. So says Vazemes, that's why we have this takana that it has to be that everyone brings their shalim according to Rabbi Yeshua. Says the Gemara further on Rabbi Yechon ben Shal. Let's say you have a challah. We just said it has to be a shalim. Tidei shalim. What's a shalim? Says Rabbi Yechon ben Shal. What happened if kedei chalasa was taken? What's the case? Case is someone forgot to separate challah. What's the halacha? You're supposed to separate challah while it's still a dough. The question is, someone baked this challah and they forgot to separate challah, a slightly common case. What do you do now? You have all your challahs and you can't eat them. They're not kosher because you didn't take off challah. So what do? The halacha is, one of our favorite topics, as you all know, we take off challah right now. Right now, in the baked form, we take off a piece of challah and that's going to be challah and everything. But that challah, that loaf of bread, that you took off a piece, that loaf of bread is now what? Is missing a piece. So is that called a shalim? That's the question of the Gemara. Or, ukitei dimua, you have damai, you have it's mixed, dimua, as Rashi says, you have nidmas, that you have truma that falls together with chulin and it comes mixed together, so you can't eat it, so you have to take off a little piece, that's chal, the truma on it, but again, now the loaf of bread is missing a little piece. Is it called a shalim? Says the Braisa Ma'arvin Loiba, you're allowed to, yes, make an ear from it. So we see that if a teeny little piece is missing, and we'll see in a moment a little more about this, it's still considered a shalim. We learned in a Braisa, we learned to steer in the Braisa. Again, first the Gemara just said that whether a piece of challah was taken off, whether a piece of demai was taken off, it's going to be fine. Then we said a different Braisa says that if it's a piece of truma taken off, it's fine. But if a piece of challah is taken off, it's not fine. So what's the story? We have a steer in the din of challah. When I take challah off of my loaf of bread, is that loaf of bread called a shalim? Can I now go use it for an eruv? Which, by the way, consequentially will be the same din. Can I use it for lechem mishnah? The same din of shalim. Says the Gemara, Loi kasha, habachalas nachtam, habachalas balabayis. One is by a baker. Rashi points out that by a baker we allow him to take off less challah because we don't want him to lose so much money. Balabayis, you take off more. The Tanan, like we learned in the Mishnah, Shir challah, echad me'esrim ba'arba. What is the shir of challah? 1/24. If you make a dough for yourself, and you make a dough for the party of your son, again, a balabais has to take off 1/24. However, nachtaim, if you're a baker, and you made bread to sell it, or bashuk in the marketplace, even if you're not a baker, you're a regular lady in your house, but You start a business, you want to sell your bread in the shuk. What's the din? Then you only take off 1/48th. So when the Brisa said that when you remove challah, it's still called a shalem, that's when you only took off a 48th. When does it say it's not a shalem? When you took off a 24th, of course, this was more the din back. Bisman Chazal, they took off the challah and they gave it to the kohen. Bisman Hazeh, that we don't do that. Bisman Hazeh, that we just burn it, or you just wrap it up and you throw it out, then we're not as makbid exactly how much to take off, but one should know sometimes people take off just so much, they take off a whole clump. There's no reason for that. You just have to take off a little bit of kazayis, a little bit of matchbox size. That is the halacha lemaisa. But what we also see here is very important. Sometimes you have a loaf of bread and it got stuck to another challah maybe, or a little piece got cracked off, or maybe when you're not looking, the kid came and tasted the challah, and you want to know, is it a shalim now? It's a shalim, it's missing a little piece. The halacha is, if it's missing up to 1/48th, it is called a shalem. Very nageya, comes straight from our Gemara. Moving along, Amar Rav Chisda, another fascinating halacha about shalem. Says Rav Chisda, Tafra b'kisei ma'arvin loiba. Let's say you literally, Tafra, you sewed it together with a kisim, with a toothpick. What does that mean? You have a challah, part of it is falling off. So now you take a toothpick, you stick it through, and now it's a shalem. Because now you have the little piece, and you have the whole challah, and it's all stuck together. It looks like one. Says Rav Chisda, that works. Ask the Gemara 1 second about Tanya. The Brisa says, "Hey, Marvin, but it doesn't work." Like kasha, the yada, the idea tifra, tfera. Question is, how good are you? If you can notice it, if you can tell that here's your challah, a little piece taken off, then it's no good. If you do a good job and you stick it in, and it's not noticeable that it's a separate piece, then it's called a shalom. Again, another case that could potentially be nagea, challah falling apart. As long as you can put it in a way that it looks shalom, that's the halacha that we see over here. Amar Rav Zira, Amar Shmuel, Ma'arvin Bepas Ayris. You're allowed to make an ear with ayris bread, upas doichen, a different type of flour of bread. Amar Bar Ukva, l'dim of Arsamin, Dimar Shmuel, bepas ayris ma'arvin, upas doichen, ein ma'arvin. Different types of breads, millet and grain, different types of breads, whether you're going to be allowed to use for an erev. One yeah, one no. Amar Rav Chia bar Avin, Amar Rav ma'arvin pas adoshim. You can even use lentil bread, which is the lowest quality, very inferior. You could use that for the erev. Says the Gemara, well, that you just went too far. Aini, is that true? There was someone around the days of Mar Shmuel. And they threw this lentil bread to the dog, and the dog didn't eat it. We see it's quite a dreadful bread if even the dog won't eat it. Says the Gemara, no, that was made of other items. That wasn't made out of lentils. Like the pasuk says, all the different flours, one big conglomeration of all these different flours. That's when it's very, very low quality, even lower than adashin and lentils. That is when you cannot use it for an erev. Papa Amar, Adam. Why, I don't know, but it was roasted with the feces of a human being. Havai, and that's the reason why the dogs didn't eat it. It was disgusting. That it was roasted in the feces of a person. That you're going to eat this sa'irim, this barley. It just means, it doesn't mean it's good bread. It means l'shi'urim, that you're going to eat the quantity of it. You're going to be careful about the quantity, because there was no food. This was the famine back then, so they were very careful about what they ate. So it means the shear, you can be very careful about the shear. What it means is that it looks like it has the appearance of barley bread and not a wheat bread. Different ways they used to make the bread. One looked more appealing, one less appealing, and that is that. So we see that the lowest level bread, very, very inferior quality, you cannot use for your erev. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Be'al Vaman Alf. A person is allowed to give money to a store, or to a baker. Eliezer says you want to be involved in the erev, and your neighbor is a baker, so you give him $5 and you're part of the erev. Nothing doing. No, you cannot be zeicha in your erev with money, say the chachamim. And of course, this is going to bring us into the sugya of how to acquire, how to make a kinyan. Says the chachamim, money will not work. But the chachamim admit, if it's anyone else, he doesn't sell bread, and you want to give him $5 to partake in the erev, then it will work. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Why? Because you need to have das. So the question is, what's the difference? Why, when it came to the baker, if I give him $5, it doesn't work? If it comes to a random person, it does work. Let's see the top Rashi. You tell your neighbor, here's some money and be zeicha, acquire for me in the Eruv. Why? It works. When you gave your neighbor $5, he doesn't normally sell his bread. So what's going on? If you're why did you give him money? You're just paying him to be your messenger. You're paying him to be involved. You're not buying the bread from him. So you're creating him into a shliach, and that is the reason. It's as if you said to him, make me an Eruv. We know, as we've been learning till now, you don't have to buy in. You don't have to pay in. You could give someone over the rights. So if you tell your neighbor, can you make for me an Eruv? It will work. So if you go and you give the neighbor money, it'll be no less. However, that would, yes, work. But if you give him money, then it won't work. A little bit perhaps ironic, because again, as we'll see, giving money is not a kinyan. And if you go to a baker and you say, here's $5, I want to buy into the Eruv, what's your intent? To buy the bread. So now you're trying to be kind of with kinyan kesef. Kesef is not kind of midaraisa. However, if you go to your random neighbor and you give him $5, what are you doing? You have $5 is buying the bread? No way, he doesn't sell bread. What's that $5? That $5 is just to make him a shliach. You're paying him to be your messenger. Then it will, yes, work. Concluding the Mishnah, this on the air of the Chumin, which of course we've learned many times, has an element of maila, an element of negative. The positive is you could go in that direction, 2,000 amos, but there's a negative because in the other direction you cannot go 2,000 amos. So when it comes to ear of the Chumin, you always have to do midaitai. You always need das of the person because you don't know. How do you know he wants to travel there? Maybe he wants to travel there. By Eruvin Chatzeros, which is only good. All it does is enables him to carry, so only doing good, then he could do it whether he has the das or not. Lefi, why? Very important rule. You're always allowed to do something good for a person without telling him. You can't do something negative for a person unless you were to tell him. Says the Gemara, my time of Rav Elazar, what is the reasoning of Rav Elazar that he said that if you give money it does not work? I'm sorry, why did Rav Elazar, the first opinion, the opposite? Rav Elazar said if you give money, it yes works. Ask the Gemara, why does it work? You didn't do Mashicha, you didn't pull the item. And we know Midaraisa, to be kindness, to acquire the item, you actually have to pull the item. So why does it work? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Vua, so Rav Elazar Gedal Brakim B'Shana. Rav Elazar makes this case like the case of the 4 times of the year, which we're about to see this Mishnah extensively. But just to give, just so we have the picture, what Rav Elazar is going to be telling us that it's going to work with Zachan Adam Shlei B'Fanav. Even though you're giving him money, he is going to be able to be Zaycha, he's going to be able to acquire on your behalf, like we're going to see now in the Dalit Prakim in the Shana that are, let's instead of talking about it, let's just see what these Dalit Prakim of the yard. This is now to the Mishnah. Dalit Prakim in these 4 times. Elu mashchitin es atabach bal karchai. There are 4 times of the year, as we see in Rashi. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says one of these 4 times. Erev Yom Tov Rishon Shal Pesach, Erev the first day of Pesach. Erev Yom Tov Shal Teres, Erev the first day of Shavuos. Erev Rosh Hashanah, Erev Yom Tov Achron Shal Chag, Erev Yom Kippurim B'Galil. So that's maybe 5, Erev Yom Kippur. But again, all these Erev Yom Tovim are the times. What's special about Erev Yom Tov? Special is this about to be Yom Tov. What does everyone in the world need on Erev Yom Tov? Food, meat, basar, simchas yantif. So says the Gemara, let's say you show up to the butcher, and you tell the butcher, I need some meat for the yantif. And the butcher says, I only have 1 pound of meat. You say, I need 5 pounds of meat. Butcher says, okay, I'm sorry, you only have 1 pound of meat, I'm sorry. So you know what you do? You go to Bezdin, and Bezdin forces that butcher to shecht a new cow for you. He's going to shecht this huge, massive cow, so you could get your 5 pounds of meat. Why? He's going to take such a loss. We force him to do it, says this Bryce, and we'll see why. Afilu shar shav elef dinar, even an ox, which is worth 1,000 dinar. I just want to buy 1 little dinar. We force him to shecht it, and the reason is because these are the times of the year that it's a maila for him. So we're going to say, as we'll see in a moment, zachin la'adam shalei b'fanav. Let's see further. Lefikach, therefore, what happens in mace? In the mace lokeach. Let's say the animal dies before you shecht it. What's halacha? Who incurs the loss? I walked into the store and I said I want 5 pounds of meat. As he about to go shecht it, the animal drops dead. Who pays for that dead animal? Me, the buyer, or the seller? Says the Gemara, because of what we just said, mace, if it dies, mace lokeach. It's for me. I have to incur the loss. Says the Gemara, I have to incur the loss, the buyer? I never made a kinyan. I just told him I want 5 pounds. Why am I incurring the loss? Says the Gemara, and this is why we brought in this case, and this is the reason why in the Mishnah, according to Rav Eliezer, you're going to be able to make a kinyan. Amar Avuna b'shem mashach. First error says you actually made a kinyan. You did a mashicha, you pulled it. Says Gemara, 1 second. Yachi, what does the end of the brisa say? B'shayi moisash on any other times. Not an Erev Yantif, a random Tuesday. You go over to the butcher to shecht, and he doesn't want a shecht. What's the halacha? Ain't like kinyan. You do not force him to shecht, because he doesn't have to do it for you. And therefore, what's lefikach? If the animal dies, the seller incurs the loss. Says Gemara, 1 second. You just told me the cases you did a kinyan mashicha. So any time of the year, if you did a kinyan mashicha, it should be your problem. Answers the Gemara. Like we thought. Really, you did not do mashicha. What's the case over here? That he gave it to you, he was mizakeh to you, but through someone else. And these 4 times of the year, this chasulo, that it's good for you. Everyone agrees that in these 4 times of the year, it's a maila, it's a good thing to get meat because it's Erev Yantif. Then zachin lai. Then you're able to acquire it in his behalf, and that's the reason why. That is the reason why, if it dies, it's going to be the keach, the buyer's loss. Why is it going to be the buyer's loss? It's going to be the buyer's loss because you acquired it. Zachan Adam, I gave it to you, even Shalai B'fanav. However, Shalai B'fanav, throughout the rest of the year, the rest of the year, the chayvulai, it's not good for me. Why do I want to kind of this $1,000 animal? I don't necessarily even eat meat today. It's a random Tuesday. Then you cannot acquire the animal on his behalf because he's not here. So this is the concept that we see why in our Mishnah, Rav Eliezer will say you're going to make a kinyan, even though you're giving money, because of the rules of Zachin the Adam Shlei B'fanav, you can be kinyan on his behalf. That was the first teretz. Moving along, says the Gemara of Rav Ila Amar, says Rav Ila Amar Rav Yichan, B'dal Brakim Ilu, and these 4 times of the year, Amidu Chacham Divrei Mo Divrei Torah. Different answer. There is a din daraisa. Mid daraisa money is kinyan. So on these 4 times of the year, Chachamim said we allow the din daraisa to take effect. As the Gemara now is going to explain, really, money, yes, is a kinyan. If you pay someone $5, you are acquiring the item. So why do they say you have to actually pull the item and money is not enough? Afraid about a case, we'll learn about it about Metzia one day. We're afraid that when you buy something, if I just pay for the item and I don't actually pull the item, we're afraid the person's going to say your wheat burnt up in your attic, and we're not going to know who incurred the loss because you didn't actually make the Mashicha. That's the reason why it's a din derabanan, a gzira, that kesef does not work. But midaraisa, kesef is yes kaina. So we have 2 reasons, as the Gemara, why according to the first opinion of the Mishnah, you're kaina the Eruv with money. Either, we'll say it backwards, either the second answer says, because midaraisa, money works, so that's so to allow the midaraisa din to work for Erev Tchumim. And the first answer was because of Zachan Adam Shalai B'fanav. 2 dots, about 15 lines for the end of Be'alva Mebeis. Let's finish up. We said Remaida by everyone else, by non-bakers, non-people that sell their bread, that if you give them money, you are part of that Erev. Man Shokoladam, who's that referring to? Amarav Balabais. Chanamar Shmuel Balabais. Damar Shmuel says, this old din that if you give money, you do not partake in the Erev because money does not create a kinyan. It's by the baker. It's only with money. But if you give him a kli and he puts the item in a kli, then of course, kli kaina. It's only if you told the baker, be zayche for me, and then you paid him. If you told the baker, please make for me an Erev, and then you give him $5, even though you gave him, it still is going to work. So the fact that you said Arivli shows that you're making him into your shliach. Let's conclude over here. Amar Rav Yehuda says Rav Yehuda 10 lines on the bottom and the 2 dots. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel Alacha. Rav Yehuda. We pass like Rav Yehuda in the Mishnah. We now learn a rule called Makim Sheshan Rav Yehuda Be'eruvin, the whole Eruvin. Whenever we have Rav Yehuda, Halacha come my side. That's a psak. Amar Rav Chana Baktal, Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Afilu b'mavish itlik reis of lechav. That was the case that on Shabbos the kayer falls, the lechi falls, and Rav Yehuda allowed you to continue carrying the whole Shabbos, even in that case you pass like Rav Yehuda. Amar no. Eruvin amarti loch loy bechitzos. That's a din of mechitzos, not a din of Eruvin, so that would not be a psak like Rav Yehuda. Amalei Rav Acha the Rav Ashi Hilkach. Mechlal the bli. You halacha mechal bli. You said that halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Sounds like you disagree. Whenever Rav Yehuda says when Obama or with what Mishnah Seinu inu el lefarish divrei chacham lo pligi. So why did you come along and say that halacha is like Rav Yehuda, which infers that he's arguing on the first opinion? We have a different rule that the rule says whenever it says bama, wherever it says a masai, Rav Yehuda is explaining. Says the Gemara of Anantanam learned to the Mishnah and Itaisu Alehan. If more people came on, then you have to add on to the Eruvin Mizakeh. You have to tell them. If more people moved into the Mavoi, you have to put more food in the pot. You have to tell them that they're part of the Eruv. Says the Gemara. So seemingly not like Rav Yehuda. Says the Gemara. That's a chatzah in two mavois. We'll pick up from this last piece, explaining this last din, the Rav Yehuda and the Chachamim tomorrow in Mirza Hashem.